What's going on, everybody? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to today's installment of the DADS, Not Always on Wrestling. And as you can tell by the graphics above and below us, we're here today to discuss Marvel, and more specifically, the Marvel heroes. The top 10 all-time Marvel heroes, in our opinion. As always, everything on this channel is subjective. And before we get any deeper into this, let me go ahead and put this little disclaimer out there right now. Neither Jeff nor I are really comic book geeks. So, the majority of our opinions on these lists are going to be based off of primarily the films and any animated series that we may or may not have seen, as well as, the shows on Netflix or the shows of old, like the old Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno, Incredible Hulk, things of that nature. Those are going to be what primarily drive our lists. So, with that all being said, since it is a non-wrestling week, I will be going last. So, Jeff, take it away, good sir.
2.5 minute intro for either one of us has to be some sort of record or something. It really does. It has to be it probably will never happen if I do an intro ever again. I'll throw it out there right now because, yeah.
Because we all know Jeff likes to talk.
That's right. Jeff can't count, but Jeff can sure as hell talk. So buy the shirt on Greg Trey brand. So, yeah, it's like you said, neither one of us are comic book people by nature. We are natty by nature, but we're not comic book by nature. Definitely natty by nature. How you doing, Natty? Is Jenny still single? Just curious. Anyway, asking for a friend. I'm that friend. So here we go again.
There went the 2.5 minute intro.
Yeah, right. So I am very much more, as I've always said, a DC person by nature. The only comic book that I know that I still own that's in decent enough shape where I could sell it if I want to is the full hardcover anniversary edition of The Killing Joke, which is the Joker story. Definitely not a Marvel story. So it's going to be a lot of movie images you're going to see, a lot of TV images you're going to see on my end, and I'm sure on your end as well. But as you said, hashtag subjective. And as you've already seen here in the first 3-4 minutes, shenanigans aplenty. Here we go. So let's just get into it. My number 10. It's funny you mentioned this by name in your introduction because it is my number 10, The Incredible Hulk. Now, was I alive during the Incredible Hulk's run on TV? Of course not, because I'm not, a child of the 70s. So, and I don't even think it was on in the late 70s, unless my math is off. I don't remember when it was on, but definitely in reruns, definitely syndication, and the only time, at least on my end of the Jeff Network, you'll ever see praise for Lou Ferrigno. Just throw that out there right now, because he's a gigantic twat waffle in real life. So
he is the actor's version of Virgil.
Well, William Shatner says hold my Zima on that one, but we'll go ahead and talk about him another time. We already had Sci-Fi Month with you last month, so
I've never encountered Bill. So I can't speak on that, but I have encountered both Ferrigno and Virgil, so that's why I speak on that.
Oh, no. You I definitely had our interactions with Mr. Ferrigno and he who wishes he was not Virgil. He is Mr. Jones. Anyway, so if you understand that reference, you're a music lover, and I love you for that. But, yeah, I mean, is there really more any iconic pre-animated series era, MCU era, Marvel hero than the Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno era, Incredible Hulk? I don't think so. I mean, this guy was the everything when you tuned into this show. Every week it was on. It was an incredible bit of technology. Bill's transformation into the Hulk is just extraordinary technology for when it happens. So very, very cool. Led to, I think it was at least one pilot movie and a couple different spin-off movies that, you know, all of a sudden Lou Ferrigno thought he was a movie star because of it. Okay, Lou. So, and most importantly,
those films introduced us to some of the characters that we know today, like Thor, like Daredevil.
Yes, exactly.
You know, some of our first exposures to those characters in mainstream media are a direct result of the Incredible Hulk TV series. So, for all of its flaws, we have that at least to thank it for.
So what you're telling me is we can thank Lou Ferrigno for the Jennifer Garner Elektra. Ha! I knew Lou was a fault for something.
No.
Well,
we can thank him for the Ben Affleck Daredevil,
which spun off the Jennifer Garner Elektra.
Ben Affleck Daredevil for the Jennifer Garner Elektra.
Well, if you go the Kevin Bacon route, Lou Ferrigno caused the Garner Elektra. Let's not blame Ben. I actually like Ben. I don't mind him so much. Ferrigno's just such a freaking syphilitic dick. I hate his ass. Anyway, I don't hate. That's not true. Hate's a very strong word. I just dislike him tremendously because he was a jerk to me in person, to you in person. So yeah, and
to me in person on more than one occasion.
Right, exactly. And
so it's not just a one-off.
Yeah, and the fact that his mushmouth ass actually is on the WrestleMania 7 network version, it's like, why? Just do a freaking Star Wars swipe right over his ass. Just go from, actually, that whole segment's a mess anyway, but that's another topic for another show. Because you got people
Wrestling Week.
Well, between Ferrigno and the other guy that Gene talks to, it's like, oh, this segment just does not age well. It never did. Anyway, but yes, Bixby and Ferrigno's Incredible Hulk TV show is a fun, when you're not a jaded 38-year-old and you hate everything and you're a kid watching this in syndication, it's fun. And I enjoyed it, and I still enjoy it to this day. It's just, you know, it's different. I watch it now because I just lose just such a jerk. But, you know, the depictions of Hulk in the movies are just so controversial and spastic at times, because you had that Eric Bana mess, and then you had the Ed Norton thing that technically is the template for the MCU Hulk, played by Mark Ruffalo, but you don't see Ed Norton after the Ed Norton movie. So, but I enjoy the Ed Norton movie. I even enjoy the Eric Bana version. If it's okay, this is a Star Trek 2009 thing. It's alternate universe. It kind of is there, but it doesn't exist if you don't let it.
See, in my personal opinion, the Eric Bana Hulk is the true jump off for the MCU.
Okay.
Because in the Ed Norton Hulk, they talk about how he's been off the grid for 5 years. And 5 years is the span between the two movies.
Okay.
They talk about how, you know, the whole movie starts with him in like South America.
True.
The Eric Bana one ends with him in South America.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch of little tie-ins that if you watch it enough,
right,
you pick up on these little seeds. Now, granted, the MCU started with Iron Man. We all know that.
Officially, yes.
In my Renegade Reviews universe, much like how we have my own Star Wars timeline.
A Star Wars timeline, and the fact that you start the Renaissance of Disney with Oliver and Company and not Little Mermaid. So, you know, it's, you know, again, that word is going to come up all damn day.
I feel that the Eric Bana Hulk, if you don't want to call it the jump off point, then fine. But I do feel it ties into the MCU timeline.
It definitely ties in more than Marvel Studios wants to admit.
I placed the Eric Bana version after Captain Marvel, before Iron Man, as it would fall, because it is part of the story.
Right. The Eric Bana Hulk was definitely one time. It's been sitting there collecting some green dust in my sleeve for a minute now. But the fact that I had that, okay, cool, I have all of them. Oh, wait, the Ed Norton one's not on Disney Plus. I had to go on Amazon and actually buy that. I'm like, bitch, because I knew you'd be reviewing it, and I knew that I didn't want to miss your reviews of the entire MCU. It's like, okay, fine. So went ahead and did it, and I'm glad I did, because I actually like both those movies in their own way. But this is where Hulk gets his media start as far as TV movie, and it's definitely the point where I became a fan of the Hulk. Incredible, not Hogan. Hogan was much earlier. Number 9, I knew about, but didn't really become a invested fan until the movies started coming out in the Infinity Saga. And it's so funny to me to know that this guy, the actor, shares a name with a wrestler that I almost ended up managing against more than once in the old West Coast Epic War days. Chris Evans here is Captain America. The stories that we had in the locker room when these movies started coming out were just like definitely bonus features if we were to Patreon. My goodness, wow! I mean, something I can't even say in front of the Patreon folks, but we just needled Chris like, dude, you gotta be Cap, you gotta be Cap, you gotta be Cap, like for a year. Like, you gotta come out as Cap, just cause it'd be funnier than hell. And then he did it, and I was like, should have pushed it. But 4th of July, Independence Day, the birth of America, using steroids to get ahead, it's very much Americana, right? So performance enhancing drugs to make yourself a better soldier, it's all good. Cap's arc in the Infinity Saga, I mean, God, it's just so apple pie, white meat, baby face. Like, dude, he saves the world and then goes back and make sure his woman gets the ending that they deserved so long ago. And you see him at the end with the white hair, and he passes the shit off. It's like, damn, that's that dude. He's actually a legitimate hero. And of course, we talked about it during the summer blockbusters. When he gets to wield that hammer, and it's coming because you think you're pretty convinced he only pretended he couldn't in the previous entry, and that sucker flies in his hand. Like I said in the moment in the theater, I've since watched the saga, so I know what it means now. But at the time, it's like, I have no idea what's going on, but people seem to be getting the kick out of it. So okay, cool. But man, it's a moment in time. Because only those who are worthy can wield that piece of technology. And the fact that Cap, who was not even of that world, got to do it is so cool. It's a very cool moment in movie and in media and in Marvel, period. Very, very cool. And that's where I will always remember Cap from, is the MCU and and then, going back and watching the stuff later, like the animated series and all that. Like, those are okay, but Cap really got his stride, I feel, in the MCU, for sure. And that's why I get water before kids, because I get wound up. I'm only on my second one. We're already 15 minutes in, so here, strap in, kids. We really have much opinion on these. We're not going to be on very long yet. Okay. Number 8, again, I knew about prior to, but I wasn't aware of how closely connected the story of the character ended up paralleling the story of the actor who would assume the role. I mean, is there anybody more troubled in this particular universe than Tony Stark, who would become Iron Man? And is there anybody more troubled in this actor's pool than Robert Downey Jr., who would become Tony Stark? I mean, goodness sakes, we talk about when we were talking about our Disney movies, and Emilio Estevez compared to Charlie Sheen, and how Charlie is still trying to pull the nose up. Man, Robert not only pulled the nose up, he skyrocketed back into space, literally. And good on him, because he's too talented an actor to have been wasting away to a lack of career. And man, getting the reins of Tony Stark just not only saved his career, but like you said a few minutes ago, it launched the MCU. His whole story launched the greater universe, and it's amazing to me that, you know, this troubled actor, and I dare say this troubled franchise, Marvel as a whole, the Avengers, whatever you want to call it, that was, you know, in movie development nightmare for so many years under previous establishments, ownership, really, you know, got moving. Granted, it was a different property for a while with Tony and with the first Hulk, the Norton Hulk movie, but you know, once Disney took over, it's like, okay, now that we have Disney values doing these guys, let's go ahead and get this done. And man, like I said, I did not get invested in the MCU while it was first run. But if you were not a blubbering, sobbing idiot, spoiler alert, 3, 2, when Tony dies at Endgame, you are more soulless than this ginger. I'll tell you what right now, because man, that shit gets into your very being. And the fact that he has that conversation, he has that moment where he's talking with Penny and he's got the girls, and he makes the decision to, okay, we'll go back and try to fix this, even though my selfish old Tony self is going, no, 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 no. That's what a hero is all about, folks. Self-sacrifice. I don't think anybody sacrificed more at the end game than Tony.
Yeah.
So, and I'm getting misty talking about it now. Jesus. It's funny. I look back on that day, and I remember that I quoted Spike, of all people, from Buffy the Vampire Slayer at the very finale, when, you know, Buffy, you know, realizes he's sacrificing himself to save the world, and, you know, Buffy gives him a kiss, and she runs out of the Hellmouth, and he looks up into what is going to be the sun exposure that incinerates the entire underworld, and he says, I just want to see how it ends. And that was the quote I used when Dylan and I went and saw Endgame, because I'd never seen the majority of the MCU except the Avengers, Age of Ultron, you know, those two. I'd seen those two. So, but I just want to see how it ended. And man, did they go out with a bang. And like I said, Tony really, very un-Tony, very un-pre-MCU Robert Downey-like, really stepped up. Very cool. All right, the next 1, 2, 3, 4... The next 5 out of the 6 that I have left before I get to number 1 are out of the MCU. Very much influenced by the early 2000s and even the 90s on a couple of them. Because before there was the MCU, before there was, you know, Disney owning the Marvel franchise as a whole, before there was construction over in Anaheim that's delaying to this friggin' day because they're building more shit over there, there was the X-Men saga, the 3 movies that I just love. And these next 4 characters and then one after my number 3 are very much a product of either those movies or the incredible animated series that preceded it on Fox. Number 7, you and I both talked about number 7 and the actress that played her, and just the fact that her beauty, her sexiness was so understated going into these movies because she was so young. But man, did she change everybody's mind once she left the X-Men universe and decided to become a vampire. Holy moly. The character is Rogue. Of course, Anna Paquin playing her here. Another very interesting backstory with Rogue, and I actually went back and did the whole story. And there's the backstory they give out in the X-Men movie, and the whole thing with she loses a love, and it's very sad. But man, Rogue's whole story is just, again, much like the other mutants, just very, very turbulent, very, lots of twists and turns throughout her entire story. And I love the character development as a whole in the movies, especially the first 3, like I said. And then the comic book character, as I went back and looked, just so much character development, so many great stories that they've told over the years with her, with all the X-Men and the Brotherhood of Mutants, of course, the villains, which I'm sure we'll get to another time. But I was drawn into the X-Men movies right away. One of the first things we see is Rogue, and her presence drew me in. And when you think about the fact that this young lady won an Oscar at how old for the piano? Like, she knows what she's doing. And that that character and her playing that character is what really drew me into, let's give this Marvel stuff a try. So, for what that's worth. Number 6 is one of those ladies, those female heroes who, like, I don't even think she realized how much of a badass she was as far as in the movie depictions until she was forced to embrace her badassness. But you look at the comic depictions and the animated depictions and everything since these original 3 movies, and man, Storm just whoops that ass. I love Storm, and I love me some Halle Berry as Storm. Let's not kid ourselves. Halle Berry is one of those actresses that just, she exudes sexiness, she exudes confidence, and her being this character just was one of those roles in the X-Men, the original X-Men trilogy, that really defined the character. Because again, Storm's story, and basically having to assume leadership with Professor X going down, with Jean Grey being, doing Dark Phoenix things later. Storm had to kind of take the reins and just go. Because, and then, Jean eliminates Scott, and it's just like, shit. So it's a very complicated, quick things of, okay, we have to do something. And Storm, to her credit, hitches up her singlet and like, all right, here we go. Off to the races. And like I said, Halle's such a badass anyway, as an actress and as a character in this. I find myself forever admiring both character and actress. And again, the Storm in the animated series is really, really cool. I forget who plays her, but the accent on that role is just tremendous. This is such a great depiction in the animated series. I haven't seen the greater X-Men saga yet. Working on that. But Halle's depiction definitely helped me, again, turn my DC-centric only mind into a X-Men and then greater Marvel fans. So bravo to her and bravo to Storm, the character.
Yeah. One of the things that I really, really regret about how long it took for Marvel to get the rights back to the Foxverse,
right,
is the fact that now we can't have T'Challa and Aurora Monroe
right,
as the husband-wife couple that are depicted in the comics.
Yes.
With Chadwick's passing,
Yeah.
so the whole Black Panther saga is kind of up in the air. They're still going forward with the part 2,
Right.
but what they're going to do is still a huge question mark.
Definitely.
But with that character not being there anymore, they can't have that husband-wife combination. And I was really hoping that Aurora Storm would be introduced in Black Panther 2.
Right. Oh.
Like when I first heard that they got those rights back, I'm like, dude, Storm and Black Panther 2, let's do this.
Make it happen, like now, right, exactly. And that's like how much do they rewrite to get the crossovers happening? Like, how much do they change the lore of the story to make it work? That's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Again, that, even in death, the Disney intrigue is a crazy thing. Number 5 is one of the few times a redhead is not depicted as some, stepchild, useless person. I love that. Damn it.
Gee, I wonder who you're talking about.
Right? She is such a unique, multifaceted character in every depiction they've ever done of this person. Be it the later, saga overall, the Dark Phoenix movie toward the end of the X-Men saga run, whatever you want to call it. But for my money, my favorite will always be Famke Janssen as Dr. Jean Grey. First of all, the funny of Famke Janssen guest starring on The Next Generation as for the majority of the episode, a potential love interest for Captain Picard. And when you go back and watch the X-Men movies, you go, that ain't right. And if you know, you know. If you don't know, you're not paying attention clearly on any sort of sci-fi media level at all. But Famke took the Jean Grey character, who had been, from my observances of the X-Men, pretty much she was there, but she was very much a back character to Wolverine, Professor X, I dare say even her own husband, Cyclops. But Jean in the X-Men trilogy was like, nah, her fall to the dark side, and again, you talk about sacrifice, man, Logan having to take her out was like he literally tore her guts out, emotionally tore mine out. Like, oh, okay, so apparently every time we do a non-wrestling show, we're going to go back to the Han Solo lightsaber stabbing. Got it. So much like that same moment when, Kylo shanks Han Solo right through the guts with the lightsaber, when Logan has to, and notice I'm saying Logan, not Wolverine, by the way, when Logan has to sacrifice Jean to save the world, it's like, son of a bitch, God, I hate these heroes sacrificing things. It's terrible. It's terrible. It just completely wrecks your insides. Now, I'm not taking away anything from the live action actor in number 4, but for my personal recollections of things and remembrances of things, I will always go back to the animated depiction of Wolverine as probably my favorite. And I say that because two reasons. One, he just, as much as Hugh Jackman's Wolverine was very much a no, it's given, this guy was more. Like, he just didn't care. And the fact that he allowed the word bub to become a regular word in my house, I'm okay with that. Because, I never said the word bub before I saw that cartoon show. Now, for about 2 years, everything was, hey, bub, shut up, bub. And my mom was, stupid show. So I love the animated Wolverine. He's a trip. He's so fun. And I am forever happy that they, when they did the X-Men movies, that they picked somebody as, again, multifaceted, as we found out later, as Hugh Jackman. Because, when you see him in the X-Men movies, he's very much a, very singular character. But would you ever think Wolverine would end up being freaking P.T. Barnum? No. But Hugh Jackman's so funny and so talented. The fact that Hugh Jackman was a guest star on Raw and got one over on our boy Ziggles, that just forever warms my heart, because, he's a fan. And it's so cool that he was involved, in one of Matt Cardona's brief moments of awesomeness on the show before he got released for officially the first time. But very cool. And like I said, the animated Wolverine will always be my favorite. All right, number 3, we're going to briefly step out of Professor X's school of gifted children here for just a second, and head into New York City, and a young kid who, man, you talk about a tragic beginning, ended up spawning a hero. No, I'm gonna talk about Spawn. Spawn's a whole other show. Wow. Todd McFarlane's a crazy person, but I love it. Number 3, and again, the movie will be my forever thing when it comes to this character for a multitude of reasons, not counting the multiverse, which came later, was also fantastic. But of course, Spider-Man. Everything about Spidey, from the animated series times, I think there were approximately 458 Spider-Man cartoons. I think roughly that many series between the 70s and the 90s, give or take about 200. Jesus Christ. But man, Tobey Maguire's 3 movies are just tremendous. 3 is what it is, but 3 is still good in places also. And of course, we get the Macho Man in part 1, which it was during the filming of, or during the fallout from the release of the first one that he appeared on my show. So to talk about Bonesaw, to talk about working with the Marvel folks and Spidey and everything was very cool. To talk about with Randy about at length, Yes, he promoted a rap album. Yes, we dissed Hulk Hogan because you go with the guest.
That's what Mach did back then.
That's what Mach did back then. That's right.
Be a man, Hulk.
That's right.
Yeah.
Come on, don't be scared. I'm not gonna do the whole song. I refuse. Because I can do the whole chorus. It's very scary to this day. But yeah, Spider-Man's depictions in the first 3 movies and God, in the MCU, it's just amazing how they've done with Tom. Andrews, they are what they are. The first one's way better. The second one definitely has its moments, but it's definitely like that. You can see why they didn't, cross that into the MCU until like now with the multiverse opening up, because man, the third Tobey movie and the second Garfield movie are just like, ooh, like they're rough. But Spidey's got the greatest lessons. With great power comes great responsibility. It's like, man, can you ever have a bigger lesson imparted to your children, your family, like anything like that, your job? It's like, if you've been given this power that comes with, the greatness of the power, you have to assume the responsibility that is contained therein. And man, especially more in the original 3, it's very, very, it's a thread that continues throughout the entire trilogy. And it's so well laid out and so well placed and so beautifully executed from the minute we see the opening of the first one to the very end of the third one. It's such a great story. All right, number 2. We're going back into the X-Men universe here, and if I'm at number 2, and I said number 1 didn't have anything to do with the X-Men, saga, who else can I be talking about but our favorite Baldy besides me? Patrick Stewart, and of course Charles Xavier, Professor X, whatever you want to call the gentleman who, even though he is physically unable to walk, physically impaired, he is most definitely not mentally impaired.
Oh, no.
Far from it. Full disclosure, I've not seen Logan, so I've not seen his passing in that version. But his destruction in X-Men The Last Stand at the hands of Jean, or the Phoenix, you talk about a moment in the theater that I was when I saw, Kylo approach Han Solo knowing what was going to happen. I had no idea that was going to happen. I'm in the theater watching Jean Grey disintegrate Professor X, and I'm just like, I forget what year it came out, but whatever year it came out, I'm a blubbering idiot. Like, it was terrible. And then, of course, when he comes back in the future one's like, oh, okay, well that makes you feel better. But Professor X is such a tremendous leader, and I like that they made him flawed in the trilogy. Like, he wasn't the perfect, teacher and mentor that we all thought he was, because he had secrets. He had a dark side. It was like, interesting. And I love that he and Eric are friends, like, for life. Even during the blood feud, they're still buddies. Like, they still come together. They still play their chess in Magneto's crazy ass, cell. It's so cool. It's so neat that they maintain their friendship. It's like, look, we don't agree on anything except the fact that we grew up together and we still love each other. It's like, damn. Oh, sorry. Number 1. Y'all are going to laugh at me. So be it. But without this hero, there is no Marvel anything. I'm talking about Marvel Man himself, Stan Lee. Jeff, he's not really a Marvel superhero. Bullshit. Stan Lee's a hero, period. Dude. Stan Lee's like the joke about Lemmy. You know, who won a fight between God and Lemmy? Ha! Trick question. Lemmy is God. Stan Lee is our Marvel guy. Stan Lee is our Marvel man. He is the guy. Without Stan, there is no Spidey. There is no X-Men. There is no MCU that carried on for what felt like 500 years. Well, it was only 27 movies or whatever it's been now. Maybe 24. These movies, these cartoons, these comics, these specials on TV, the hub on Disney Plus, all of it is because of Stan. And if there is a list that I have not completely compiled yet of people I regret not ever having the opportunity or the actually, or meeting in person, Stan is near the top, if not at the tippy top. Such a cool person, such a unique personality. And you talk about Wolverine giving absolutely no. He got that from Stan. Stan, once he realized he didn't have to give a shit, he did not. Like, nope, I'm on my terms. Thanks for playing. So that's where I stand on my 10. No honorable mentions. Again, not a comic book guy, but there you go. But of course, as we always do on the non-wrestling weeks, I defer to the gentleman to my left because even in this show of we're not the experts by any means, he is much more multiversed than Marvel than I am. So with that being said, Renegade, my friend, take it away.
Well, thank you very much. I did like the little pun there that you threw in there. That was perfectly timed.
As I do every now
and it's funny that you say that because the images that I chose very much give off an illusion of multiverse.
Oh.
So that was actually a really, really fun pun to throw in there. I'm not going to waste any time. As you alluded to, we have a lot of the same entries, which is why I wasn't talking that much during your list, because I wanted to save my diatribe for when I got to them.
Well, because despite the evidence to the contrary the last year and a half, he does have a decent amount of dialogue in his brain that he can use when he wants to. So,
Yeah, and I use it when I need to use it. And when we have that many similarities, then I just feel the need to kind of be quiet, let you run your thing. That way I actually have something to talk about when we get to them on my side.
And I'm sure with the differences we have, I'll tend to, I'll chime in as little as I'm able to based on what I know. So.
Yeah. Full disclosure, Jeff revealed to me his list last night before we taped because I just kind of wanted to see where his head was and how many similarities we were going to have. If we ended up having more similarities than we did, then I was just going to propose, let's cut this down to one list.
Right.
Considering we almost had half differences, we went ahead and left it alone. So that was my mentality. So Jeff knows we have similarities, but he doesn't know what similarities we have.
I do not.
And by proxy, he doesn't know what differences we have. Exactly. And my number 10 is one of those differences. I find it ironic that you had the Mrs. in this pairing. Well, I'm going to talk about the Mr. Scott Summers, Cyclops. I love his depiction in the media. More specifically, the James Marsden version.
Oh yeah.
I'm not too familiar with the young man that plays him in the First Class timeline. as I believe he's only popped up in the last couple movies. I don't remember him being in First Class.
I don't think he is either. Yeah.
And I don't remember him being in Days of Future Past, which I only saw once.
Right.
He might have popped up in Apocalypse,
Maybe.
which I believe I saw once. And I still haven't seen Dark Phoenix
Right.
of the new timeline.
Yes.
But James Marsden's Cyclops, and I will die on this hill, he had the best line in the first movie. When Logan Wolverine was talking about their suits, and he just really quickly quipped back, "What would you prefer, yellow spandex?"
Right. And you go back to my picks of Wolverine, it's like, oops.
And Hugh Jackman's Wolverine just has to look at him like, you know what? Fuck you, dude. You're an ass for that.
Yeah. I was waiting, since it wasn't a Disney release, I was waiting for Hugh to say F you more than once to Scott. Like, screw you, you little shit. Like, for real.
But James Marsden's performance, and the fact that I had never really seen him prior to this, was why I went and saw the horrific film Sugar and Spice, because I wanted to see his eyes. As
Right?
lame as that reason is, I wanted to see what his eyes looked like, because
Right.
he's always got that visor on, very much like Geordi in Star Trek.
Yes, yes.
You know,
Which is why I
if your
gravitated to
only
Scott.
frame of reference to LeVar Burton is Geordi LaForge, then you don't know what LeVar looks like without those visors.
Right.
This was my only exposure to James Marsden at the time.
Right.
So I wanted to see what the rest of his face looked like without that visor. But Scott Summers' Cyclops, the leader of the X-Men, you know, of course, not counting Professor Xavier, but once they get in the field, man, Cyclops does his thing, and you've got to respect him. You know, him and Wolverine have got a great friendly rivalry, which has only been topped in recent years, I think, by the rivalry between Tony and Steve.
I was gonna say, yep. It's funny to me that you mentioned James and seeing him outside of the visor. I still wonder to this day, if they would have continued with the storyline, where his character in the Superman Returns thread would have gone. Because it was
I still haven't seen that.
Good Lord have mercy, boy. All right, well, spoiler alert, sorry in advance. The fact that we know by the end of that movie definitively that Lois's boy is not Richard's boy, and we know where his progeny, originates. It's like, where does that leave James Marsden's character? It's like he's still engaged to Lois. They're not married yet. And now the child he thinks is his own has a little bit of a Kryptonian Kryptonian in him. Like, interesting to see where that would have gone. And it is a shame that it bombed so bad, because I enjoy Returns for what it is. So it is a shame that we didn't get to see the thread of Perry's nephew, Richard White, and where his character would have gone had Returns gone farther. But yeah, seeing him outside of the visor is always cool. James is a great actor, period. So, yeah. But him really getting his feet wet, really getting himself established in these movies, and again, his elimination from the timeline as a result of Jean, it's like, God damn, bitch, you crazy.
Yeah.
Your hubby and your mentor, it's double damn you.
She did what she had to do, man. Number 9 is the first similarity we share. And you'll probably be surprised that it's as low as it is on my list, considering how high it was on your list. But Charles Xavier,
Interesting.
You see there the 3 versions of him: James McAvoy from the First Class timeline, right. Of course, Patrick Stewart from the original timeline, and then in the middle there, the animated from the X-Men cartoon series.
Yes.
I have to say, watching the First Class timeline, seeing Charles Xavier pre-wheelchair was definitely a mind F for me.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
Because, because I'm not too versed in the comic books, I forgot that he had use of his legs at one point. For some reason, it was embedded in my mentality that he was born without the use of his legs. So seeing him up and maneuvering and walking was very much a, OMG moment for me. And then as the story progressed and how he lost his legs. But like you said, his relationship with Eric Magneto, it is very much a cool thread that runs through all of these. And they really should not be friends, but they are. And the way they trade their quip during the X-Men 2, X-Men 3 timeline, why do you ask questions to which you already know the answers? I just love that dichotomy. And then you put Ian McKellen in the role of Magneto.
I was going to say
Patrick Stewart, and it's just like, I'm sold right there.
They are such goobers together. In any really other, yeah.
I don't know if they've done other movies together. Like, I would sit and watch like Grumpy Old Men, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen.
Yes, please.
Do that.
Yes, please.
Please. Yeah. I don't usually co-sign on reboots, but God damn it, before we lose either of those two, can we make that happen, please?
Seriously, because they're so not grumpy, either one of them. They're so not those guys, but it's perfect. It's so funny, or some sort of older timeline of The Odd Couple, because they're very similar off camera. But can you imagine like Patrick playing like the Felix character and Ian just like being the freaking sloppy Oscar character? It's, oh my God, like holy crap, so funny. And yeah,
and just because you could imagine them doing that, flip it.
Right. Well, okay, but it's funny. I
have
can't
Ian
see
be Felix and Patrick be Oscar, just because you can't see it.
Okay, I was gonna say, yeah, I can't make myself go there as Patrick Stewart being the non-prim and proper one. Like
that's why you've got to do it though, because it would put it in such a different light. You wouldn't expect that casting.
Yeah.
So dump it on its head.
Just there's so much possibility there, but and we saw how. Like, I would love to see a full, just those two outtakes bonus feature on the trilogy DVD. Because, damn it, like, that even in their most serious, where they're trying to, save the world, destroy the world, whatever, they're both halfway through it because they're both a couple of goobs. So just, and I swore up and down that Patrick was going to out himself and be Ian's like partner off. I swore it was going to happen. That's how close they were and are. I was convinced it was going to be a thing. Like I knew in my heart that, but it's not. But they are just so great together. And like you said, Patrick's depiction of Professor X is what is Professor X for me. I'll never shy away from that. But
I never really watched the 90s cartoons.
And see, I did. So the fact that I was able to evolve, it's funny. I went into, Patrick Stewart's our guy. He's Captain Picard. So of course I did. But, seeing like you said, the non-paralyzed depiction was very, very interesting for me to have to process. And I didn't mention this earlier because I didn't even think about that, to be honest with you. But, yeah, it was definitely a different presentation, and I loved it.
Definitely. Number 8 on my list is one that I don't know that you'll really be able to wax philosophical on, as I was pretty much in the dark of the character until it came to the Netflix series. But upon his debut in season 1 of Jessica Jones, which then led to his own series, I just gravitated towards this character full force because of the charisma that permeated through the screen. Mike Coulter as Luke Cage. I mean, if this had been in the 90s, it would have been Malik Yoba. You know, New York Undercover, Cool Runnings. It would have been him. You can even see some similarities in the facial features between Coulter and Malik Yoba.
Definitely.
You know, if Marvel is going to recast him for the MCU, which I pray to God they don't,
right?
Because he did such an amazing job. But if they're going to recast him, the only person I will accept in this role is Terry Crews.
Oh, yeah.
The only actor I will accept. But Luke Cage, man, when he debuted in Jessica Jones, there was just something about Coulter's performance that captivated me, drew eyes to his role, and I can't wait to see more if they in fact do begin to bring the Defenders into the MCU, which there's talks about. And I briefly touched on it when we did our Blockbusters show.
Yeah.
But there's talks that, and I'll just segue right into this, that my number 7, Charlie Cox, Matt Murdock, Daredevil, will be in the next Spider-Man film.
Oh, there you go.
As Matt Murdock, not as Daredevil, playing Peter's lawyer. So if they decide now to begin bringing these characters to the MCU, while I hope they don't recast any of them, I mean, the only one I would really accept a recast for is Iron Fist. But even then, I like the dude that played Iron Fist in The Defenders and the Netflix series. He did good with what he was given. The writing wasn't the greatest on his show, but that's not his fault. But back to number 7, Matt Murdock, Daredevil, the blind man who fights crime. You know, the devil of Hell's Kitchen. Gotta love it. Even the Affleck version, which I know gets royally crapped upon. If you go back and watch it for what it wasn't horrible. It really wasn't. Could it have been better? Yeah, Charlie Cox proved that. This is Daredevil, bitches. But it wasn't as bad as people made it out to be. Jon Favreau as Foggy? No.
Yeah, that's
No.
No.
Not after seeing him as Happy Hogan.
Right, exactly.
No. Foggy is Fulton Reed, goddammit. We've established that through the Netflix shows.
Nice.
And if you don't understand that reference, just unsubscribe.
Beat it. Just go.
In the words of Jimmy Keane, be gone.
I will root. No, sorry.
But I mean, Daredevil, I feel, is very underrated. And the fact that Daredevil's origin story ties into the origin story of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is just sheer brilliance. Because the story is that the same acid that blinded Matt Murdock is the ooze that rolled down into the sewers and mutated Splinter and the Turtles. So the hand for Daredevil became the foot for the Ninja Turtles. It all ties together. Can't undersell Daredevil. Number 6, I don't know how much you're going to be able to discuss either. You do have movie reference for this character. I don't know how much other reference you have, but it was the nickname that we gave Stat Boy back in the college years. Nightcrawler. You know.
Yeah, other than the movie, I got nothing. So.
And Alan Cummings' performance in X2 specifically, you know, it was so good that when they did X-Men Evolution, which I did watch the infancy of that animated series, they brought Nightcrawler onto the show immediately because he was so popular in the film, and Alan did an amazing job with the role. But the character of Nightcrawler and his teleportation abilities, if I could have one power of the X-Men, aside from the regeneration from Logan, I think it would be the teleportation of Nightcrawler.
Just think of the gas savings in cars. Oh my God.
Right? I mean, seriously, like, poof, I'm in Missouri. Poof, I'm in Florida. I'm in Disney World. Poof, I'm in Tennessee visiting my mom. You know, round trip travel time, 30 minutes.
At best.
You know, for real. Because, you know, you're going to have to stop and do some stuff while you're traveling. But still, Nightcrawler, I just feel, is another very underrated character, especially when it comes to the films, which, as we've stated, are our primary reference points.
Right, right.
Number 5 to number 1 are all characters that you touched on.
Oh, wow, okay.
Number 5 was your number 10.
Hmm.
The Incredible Hulk. And it wasn't until Age of Ultron that I really began to relate to Bruce Banner, the Hulk, and the seeds of the romance that were being planted with him and Natasha. And the beast that can only be calmed down by that one special person. And I feel like the fact that they ditched that storyline was a travesty because so many people ragged on it for slowing the movie down. But I feel that it added so many layers to Age of Ultron that until Endgame, Age of Ultron was my favorite Avengers film.
Yeah, I agree.
Primarily because of the seeds of that romance that were planted.
Yep, I agree with that 100%.
You know, and Ruffalo and Scarlett Johansson had amazing chemistry between the two of them.
Yep. And to the technology creators' credit, Scarlett even had good chemistry with the Hulk, like the computer generated guy. Like it just worked. And like you said, the fact that they abandoned it was horseshit. I was so ticked when they did that. And granted, you know, again, if you haven't seen Endgame by now, pause.
Where have you been?
Go watch Disney Plus. Go watch Endgame. Okay, good. You good? You good? The fact that now we know why they did away with it, because, you know, there was enough loss in that movie as it was. I mean, Jesus Christ. But
even
still,
there, they touch on it because Bruce says how much he tried to bring Nat back too.
Yeah, and that's the beauty and the burden of Endgame. Can you imagine having that responsibility and not abusing it? Like, you have to be a true hero to not go back there and go, nope, I'm bringing my people back. Like, I couldn't do it. If I had the chance to go back and fix things, I'd bring Nat back in a heartbeat. I would. There was no way I could not leave her back there. There's just no way.
The problem is that her demise was not the result of the snap, so it couldn't be reversed by the snap.
No, but you can still go back and dude, Bruce is a smart guy. He would have found a way. But
Cap returned the stones to each point in time where it was taken.
Yep. So therein
lies a story right there of how they could have saved Matt.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that at least her origin story will still have her on screen. I don't know if you're going to get into Black Widow or not, so forgive me. But, God, so underrated as a character, so underrated as the movie character, and just, Scarlet. Every time I see Scarlet, she surprises me at how multi-talented she can truly be in just one character. She's so good. So I'm glad Black Widow's going to get is getting a full release. So
number 4 on my list. Forgive me, I forget where you had him.
Okay,
but he was the jump-off point for the MCU. Iron Man.
Lower than I probably should have had him. Granted, the people's reactions probably by now, but yeah, he was still pretty far down my list.
Marvel's answer to Bruce Wayne.
Yep.
At the end of the day, a man-made billionaire who has money for cool gadgets. That's what Bruce Wayne is.
Absolutely.
He's not an alien. He wasn't zapped by a gamma ray. He's not a mutant. He's just your average man who has money for super cool gadgets.
He's just a dude.
And at its core, that is all Tony is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he had the shrapnel in his chest that he had to get out, which helped power his arc reactor for the beginning.
Right.
But once that got taken out, he was just back to being a man in a suit.
I've often heard Tony and Bruce be compared, and I always throw back, it's like, the difference is Bruce did, at least in movie depiction, Bruce didn't outwardly snark himself to the masses, where much like a lot of our heroes on this list, Tony does not give a shit. You don't like me? Cool. I still have my money in you, so I really don't care.
The other difference is Batman is who Bruce was. Bruce was the costume that he wore.
Right.
Iron Man is the costume that he wears. Yeah. Tony is who he really is.
Yeah. And I love that and again, we're going off in the weeds here. I love that they included that line from Katie Holmes in Begins. Like, this is your mask. And it's like, God damn, she gets it. Like, Rachel gets it. Like, he's not really Bruce. Like, Bruce died a long time ago. And it's just like all these things. It's like, the man I loved, he never came back. It's like, God damn, she's right. He never did come back from that overseas. He's not this. Wow. It's hitting me right now. I'm like, oh shit, that's right. It's hitting me. But yeah, Tony assumed the Iron Man persona and the costume as a means to an end in more ways than one.
Yeah.
But it wasn't who he was. Who he was the man we saw before his sacrifice in Endgame. The man who, despite his constant tries not to be that guy, the man who fell in love with his wife, the man who fathered his children, the man who became a man and grew his stupid ass up. That's who Tony Stark was.
Yeah. And I've never really subscribed to Tony's philosophies, but I do appreciate the sacrifice that he made in Endgame. And I didn't cry when Tony died. We all know I have a soul. I cried like 7 other times during that goddamn movie.
I was gonna say.
I didn't cry when Tony died because I was kind of expecting it. If you
Right.
think about it, he tried to sacrifice himself so many times before
Well,
and always ended up coming through unscathed. When the Chitauri attacked in New York and he had to fly through that wormhole, he attempted to sacrifice himself for the greater good. The destruction of Ultron,
right.
he attempted to sacrifice himself for the greater good. Even going out to fight Thanos on his home world in Infinity War,
Right.
he tried to sacrifice himself for the greater good. Everybody else that was there with him disappeared. Peter, Doctor Strange, Quill, Star-Lord. But Tony stayed behind.
Well, I think that's why I did cry, because they'd got everybody back. You know, him and Peter didn't have to be separated after all, because, again, much like his wife and his children, you know, he didn't want to be the guy that Peter looked up to and, you know, and be the hero, but he was. So he got him back, and it's like, yeah, now he's dead. It's like, dude, I think I cried more for Peter than I did for myself as far as Tony's passing. Because, again, my love for Spidey, you know, number 2 on the actual characters list for me. So, you know. Anyway.
Number 3 was one that you had pretty high up on your list also. And we go for the last time to the X-verse.
Ah.
Wolverine.
Oh, yeah.
And Hugh Jackman's portrayal. I mean, just look in that picture, how jacked and cut and defined he got to play Wolverine.
If y'all there need to go take a break and grab a towel cigarette, we understand. It's okay.
But I believe that was from either The Wolverine or X-Men Origins Wolverine. It wasn't from one of the X-Men movies. It was definitely from one of the solo films.
It damn sure wasn't from Logan.
But I mean, you just look at the condition that he would constantly put his body through to get into the role.
Yep.
And he's even said the one regret that he has is he never got to don that classic yellow outfit.
Right.
As cheese-tastic as that outfit would look on the screen, he does wish that he could have worn it once.
Right.
And if anything, that's the one reason I would want him to come back for one more movie, is so that he could do that. Even if it's just a cameo in Deadpool 3.
Right.
Because Deadpool would razz the crap out of him for showing up in that spandex suit. But it would be so perfect.
Dude, I'm hearing Ryan's voice in my head now, and I'm trying not to pee myself laughing. I'm not going to lie.
It would be such cheese.
Oh, my God.
But that's the perfect place to have it.
Dude, so much wine would be needed with all that cheese. Like, oh, my God.
And you talk about his turn as P.T. Barnum.
Right.
I love the scene in Night at the Museum 3 where Lancelot encounters him on screen or on stage doing a performance of Excalibur, and he makes a Wolverine joke because Jackman is just ready to take on Lancelot, and he starts to get into the position, and I forget who the girl is playing his Guinevere on stage.
Yeah.
But she's like, this isn't an X-Men movie or something to that effect. And he's just got to be like, damn it. I don't have the steel popping out of my knuckles right now. Just
it's like, son of a bitch.
Such a great moment where he was able to make fun of his portrayal of Wolverine. And I always love those type of moments in films.
Well, because for the longest time, that was his, and it may still even be his defining role. I don't know, how. I mean,
we talked about the Stifler effect,
right?
How an actor will forever be defined by a role. You've got your Patrick Stewarts,
Right.
who have done so many things that it's hard to say, oh, he will be defined as Jean-Luc Picard. But wait, there's Charles Xavier. But wait, there's his turn as Ebenezer Scrooge. You know? But then you've got people like Hugh Jackman, and the fact that he's played Wolverine for 10 films.
Yeah.
Because I believe every episode of the First Class timeline, he at least pops up in a cameo.
That sounds right.
Days of Future Past, I know he had a bigger role in, but I know in First Class and Apocalypse, he pops up as a cameo. I don't know if he popped up in Dark Phoenix because I've never seen it.
Yeah.
I want to say he does, though, because it's the trend. So that's the 4 First Class films, the 3 Wolverine films, and the 3 X-Men films.
10.
It's hard to be not defined by that character, regardless of what else he's done.
Right.
You know, he didn't, but he could have won an Oscar for P.T. Barnum, and he'd still be defined by Wolverine.
Definitely.
Logan.
Definitely. All right. Fair enough.
And now I'm sitting here looking at my images for number 2 and number 1, and I'm wondering if I want to flip-flop them or not.
Uh-oh.
Because I'm going back and forth between my favorite and the epitome of Marvel superheroes when it comes to my definition.
Oh, okay.
And which should I stick with as my number 1? You know, so I'm going to go ahead and allow you to call it right now. Do I stick with my personal favorite for number 1, or the character that I feel is the epitome of Marvel superherodom as my number 1?
Well, I will give you option C. How about that? Much like a lot of stat people don't seem to realize, when you have 2 in the top spot, it's not 1 and 2. When you have 2 in the top spot, number 3 is not number 2. It's number 3. It's 1 and 1A. So, by all means, if you need to do 1 and 1A, you do you, boo.
All right.
Because if they are that equal where you can't differentiate without outside help, then they are equal and they are both number 1 for you. So go for it.
All right. So I'll tackle my personal favorite first then.
Okay.
And he's only become my personal favorite since the films, because I had no true frame of reference other than his character name for who he was prior from the films. But the minute that Chris Evans picked up that shield and then picked up Mjolnir, he is Captain America to me.
Damn right.
And that battle scene was probably where I shed the most tears.
Oh, yeah.
Between him grabbing Mjolnir and us realizing what we knew all along, that he was in fact worthy. Some people feel that maybe he wasn't pretending in Age of Ultron because he was still carrying the secret that he knew that Bucky killed Tony's parents.
I was going to say.
And with that mark on his conscience, he wasn't worthy at that moment. But once that came out in Civil War, he became worthy. So there's that theory. And then there's the theory that he was worthy all along. And he just didn't want to show Thor up that early in the franchise.
Right.
But from him wielding Mjolnir to on your left and everybody just pouring through the portals, I was a wreck for that entire scene. Then Captain Marvel swooping in and the show of girl power as all the women teamed up.
Too awesome, man. Love it.
But back to Cap, like from the minute that he meets with the doctor, the scientist in the first Avenger, and I don't like bullies. I don't care who they are. It's hard to not get behind that mentality.
Exactly.
Cap always did what he felt was morally right. He, although not an alien, he is very much the Superman of the MCU. Truth, justice, the American way. That is Cap. You want to go wrestling, the 3 I's: integrity, intensity, and intelligence.
And like I said, he did it the American way with performance-enhancing drugs. Damn it! So tell me I'm wrong.
I can't even with you right now because yes, he did use the super soldier serum. He was the guinea pig that they tested it on.
Yes.
But
I know.
Captain America and Chris Evans's portrayal of Captain America is everything I aspire to be.
There you go. I love it.
The one that I feel is the epitome of Marvel superherodom is the one that was Marvel Man's greatest creation, Spidey.
I love that. And I love you have Stan in the picture at your number 1, even though Stan's not official on your list. I love you included in that. I love you did that.
Because Spidey was his favorite.
Yep.
I had to edit that image because where Spidey and Stan are was an image of Miles Morales from Into the Spider-Verse.
Right.
But I'm not a huge fan of that film.
Really?
Something about it just didn't grab me. I don't know what it was, but just something about it didn't get to me like the other 3 did. Like Toby, Andrew, and Tom.
I also may have been influenced by the fact that I saw it in theaters with my boy. That may have helped my love of it, to be fair.
Possibly. I saw it on Netflix.
Right. So.
But, like you said, with great power comes great responsibility. And Spidey every day tries to live to that motto. And the dynamic between him and Tony in Homecoming, very much that father-son relationship. And, at the time, Tony doesn't have a kid yet. So him kind of trying to fulfill what he always wanted his relationship to be like with his father, Howard, and living that through Peter, who's just recently lost his uncle, because he's only had the powers for about 6 months by the time we meet him in Civil War.
Right.
So figure within the past year, he lost Uncle Ben.
Right.
Because Uncle Ben's death is usually tied to his origin story.
Right.
So if he's had the powers for 6 months, realistically about 6 months.
Right.
I'm not sure the exact amount of time that passes between Civil War and Homecoming, but still, like I said, less than a year he's lost his uncle.
Right.
And that was his only positive male influence in his life because his parents were long gone.
Right.
So for Tony to come in and fill that role just was amazing. And then you go back to Toby and the way that he portrayed Peter and Spidey. And everyone says Toby was a better Peter than he was Spidey. And I'm willing to concede that aspect. I definitely agree that Andrew was an amazing Spidey, because he had the quick wit and the one-liners
Right.
that are associated with Spidey, especially during the fight scenes.
Right.
But Andrew was a horrible Peter.
Oh yeah, that goes without saying.
Andrew goes back to my feelings on like the Phantom. Andrew's just a hot dude in a mask. You know, Toby looks like a dork. You know, Toby looks like a nerd. Like you can believe him as a Peter. Even that image of Andrew with the over-the-shoulder glare is like, yeah, bitches, I'm hot. And then you've got Tom, who really, really is the best of both.
I was going to say. Yep. Yeah, Tom is very much the Michael Keaton of the live-action Batmans.
Yeah.
Like he's the best. He's the best Spidey, and he's the best Peter. He's the best of Spidey and the best of Peter into one actor.
Yeah.
And like I said, Toby, especially pre-Bite in the first one, nailed it. But again, Toby's Peter in part 3 when he, with great power comes responsibility. Well, with great dark clothes comes great emo images. Was what it was. But yeah, Tom definitely took the best parts of every Spidey he'd seen before him and went, all right, I got this. And I'm glad that Stan got to see that Spider-Man realized before he passed.
Yeah. Tom's portrayal of Spidey, Peter, is very much what I would liken Cameron Monaghan's performance of Jerome 2.
Yes.
Took the best of Nicholson, took the best of Ledger, took the best of Hamill, and despite what people say, took the best of Leto.
Oh, yeah.
Threw it into a blender, poured himself a big old Joker shake, and went in there and killed it. And you talk about how you wish you could have met Stan before he passed. I'm very much the same way, although I do own an autograph of Stan. I personally did not get it from him, but the very first con I attended, we're talking way back in the days, we're talking like 2000, 2001. I had my Kevin Smith sleeves with me because Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes were both going to be there, Jay and Silent Bob.
Of course.
Stan Lee was also going to be at the same convention. So I took all my jackets so that I could have Kevin and Jason sign them because I'm a huge Jay and Silent Bob dork.
Of course.
But I was unable to get a ticket for Stan.
Right.
By the time I got over there, the line was cut off. You know, it's Stan fucking Lee.
It's Stan Lee, yeah.
So. Tickets for Stan were gone before tickets for the con went on sale.
Right.
That's how big Stan Lee is, if you don't realize.
Oh, yeah.
So I was chatting it up with a couple people in line, and Stan would only do 2 signatures per person. I found somebody who only had 1 item.
Nice.
And I gave him my sleeve for Mallrats, which featured an outside of the MCU cameo by Stan Lee.
Nice.
So my sleeve for Mallrats is signed by Kevin Smith, Jason Mewes, and Stan Lee.
That's tremendous. That's very cool. It's funny that as big a fan, more so than me, you are of the Marvel, the greater Marvel universe, that your autograph of Stan was not obtained by you and you didn't actually see it take place. Because without Stan, there's no Marvel. We said that, I said that during my list. People have said for many, many years, without Bruno Sammartino, there is no WWE. My autograph picture of Bruno was not obtained by me. But I do have it. It's sitting right here. And So basically, the people that really either helped create or solidify these particular worlds, we both have autographs from that weren't our own that we obtained. Kind of a cool little thread there, I thought.
Yeah. And, while I wasn't personally up there at the table watching him sign it,
Right.
I was close enough to where I could see him signing it to know that it is a valid signature.
Right.
And the guy I gave the sleeve to didn't just forge it in line while he was waiting to get up there.
Which is definitely a much better reference than mine. Now, granted, the person that I got the autograph picture from co-wrote Bruno's autobiography, so I tend to believe it. But even still, like I said, just the relationship that the people that people herald as the person responsible for the greater good, if you will, we both have autographs from that we didn't actually physically grab ourselves. Just a cool little commonality, I thought.
And Stan is definitely one that is going to be missed. Yeah. It's sad that his final cameo was in Endgame, but it's fitting as well because from Phase 4 on, there will be no Stan cameos.
Right.
Unless they throw a picture of him in there somewhere.
Right.
Like how they did in the Netflix shows. In the Netflix shows, there was like posters.
Yeah.
Depicting Stan's image that were randomly threaded throughout the series.
Which is definitely a cool book.
And he was still alive during those.
Oh, okay.
So I think he actually appeared in a couple of episodes of the shows, but there's others that, he wasn't able to be in, and the posters are there.
Right.
So they could always go that route. And then there's also talks that there have been for Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool to pick up the Stan Lee cameo and just have Deadpool randomly pop up somewhere, drop a line or two, and then disappear.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. However we can get more Deadpool, I'm down to co-sign on. But either way, we would not be sitting here talking about Marvel superheroes, the Marvel franchise, Marvel villains in the future without Stan the Man Lee.
Absolutely not. I'm surprised we only had as many similarities as we did, but still very cool. I dug the list. I hope y'all dug my list. What do you guys think out there? Did we miss something? Did we miss somebody? I'm sure we did because, again, number one, as we always say, subjective. Number two, we're not hardcore fans by design. So,
at least of the comic books.
Right. I mean, God, the movies, geez, I regret having slept on the MCU as long as I did. I'm not going to lie. I know.
An entire shelving unit over here devoted to just comic book superhero movies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And
DC, Marvel, Ninja Turtles, the whole nine over there.
We need a crossover of those guys on live action somewhere, the Turtles and either the MCU or the DCU. And I mean, because we've had like Batman and Turtles and that was funny, but like we need some serious live action crossovers.
The closest live action crossover that there was done was an episode of Power Rangers, and there was the Power Rangers and live action Ninja Turtles.
I remember this. I'm almost remember that.
It was after my time watching Power Rangers. I had already cut it, but I know about it.
Yeah, it's definitely after my time watching the original decent Mighty Morphin for sure. But yeah, it's still fun. But I know we missed people, and I know we're probably going to miss villains when we get there. Although he and I tend to like villains more than we like the heroes because we're just
hashtag heel.
Yeah, hashtag heel, baby. That's right. I need to get that shirt still if I can find it somewhere. That is a great shirt. So again, if we miss anything, let us know. If you're watching on the live premiere, head over to JJ's left there and leave us a comment. By all means, please. If you're watching on demand, again, check us out down there. We appreciate all the comments you guys leave. Been trying to be better about answering comments if they're worth answering. Some of these comments on these shows lately has just been like, did y'all learn to type in, Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood, or what the hell, folks? Like, seriously. But anyway, we appreciate you being here. Thank you, sir, as always, for being a part of this crazy world we inhabit, and helping me break down the crazy world that Stan Lee created for us all those years ago. Just tremendous, as I say on this show. So he is the Renegade. I am the West Coast Professor, and there's the RVD post. Got to get that in before we go. We are the Dads, and we will see you guys next time right here on the Jeff Meacham Network.